It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be speaking in front of you. When Gia was embarrassing me with the details of my introduction, and she was talking about the fact that I was a marketeer in my previous birth, my mind rewound back to 3 years back when I was not in Google. I was a marketing manager in a hardware company in India. And I attended a seminar like this. It was an internet seminar. And at that time, somebody told me about Google Content Network. And at that time, my awareness, I'd heard about the Google Content Network vaguely, but didn't know much about it. So I wanted to kind of just take a show of hands and see how many of you are aware of the Google Content Network, or as we call it, the Google Display Network now. So can we have a show of hands to see how many of you are aware of it? Okay, so about 25 to 30% of you. So the rest of the session is all about the Google Content Network. So a little bit of anecdote about what happened then, 3 years back. So I got interested in the Google Content Network, Google Search, the world of internet advertising, and then 3 months later, I joined Google. My father is a computer scientist. He belongs to the old era of mainframes and things like that. And and I was in this hardware company. It's called the Big Blue, no secret. So I told my father that I'm joining Google, and he'd heard of Google. He'd used the Google search engine and everything. But he said he couldn't understand. He said, "So you're a sales guy, right? So what are you going to do in Google?" So I said, Google has revenue. We sell ads and stuff like that. So he said, "You're telling me you are leaving the Big Blue hardware mainframe to join a web page?" So I'm like, "No, it's more than the web page. There's actually people do advertising on this. We've got a full content network." But he couldn't really understand this. And even now, he kind of calls me and says, "If you need any help from me, let me know," and things like that. So now, a year back, at that time, I was doing, as Gia mentioned, I was consulting for the technology and financial services space. We would go and talk about web strategy, use the Google Search Network, Google Content Network, and really draw out a web marketing plan for them. Last year was when I decided that the Google Content Network is a very interesting space. There's so many new technologies coming in, so many new features, and I want to do this as a career. So I moved on from being a general salesperson to a specialist in Google Content Network. I put on my marketeer's hat at that time. Whenever I have to take a decision like this, I like to think of myself as a marketeer and put on a marketeer hat, or in my case, a marketeer's turban. And then I say that what would appeal to a marketeer? Does Google Content Network offer enough opportunities for a marketeer? And I realized, yes, there's so many opportunities in the Google Content Network. So here, I'm going to speak like a marketeer, like one of you, somebody who's working in a marketing company, and tell you the big opportunities that I see in the world of the Google Content Network. So think of today's session as divided in 3 parts. I'm going to share some broad directions, some broad directional guidance on what we think are the big things about the Google Content Network. Then we have my colleague joining in who will talk about the specific products on Google Content Network. And then we're going to share with you tools, technologies, features with which you can implement some of these things that I will share with you. So unlocking opportunities in display. The display ads have come a long way since '94 when we saw the first ad. So you see the one on top, that's the first display ad ever. Now this ad was very simplistic in its approach. No brand name, nothing. All it says is, have you ever clicked your mouse right here? You will. And the expectation was that people would click on that space. Move over since then, from '94 to 2010, the world of display advertising has evolved tremendously. Thousands of advertisers, millions of publishers, so many agencies. So many of us make a career out of the Google, the entire display ad business. So it's moved a lot. But the fact is, the last 2 years have been tough for advertising in general. It's been tough for all media. TV has gone down by 5%. Print has gone down by 4%. Almost all mediums have gone down, including even display, for instance, has not been completely unaffected. It's not completely immune to the slowdown. And what's worrying for display is the fact that people say that we are developing blind spots to display advertising. We are so familiar with the websites that we know what portions to avoid. So that's particularly challenging from a display advertising point of view. So in light of all this, there's some research which shows that rich media ads actually get better results. People don't develop blind spots to rich media ads. But only 6% of the advertising is in rich media. The rest is all static banners. So those are the kind of things that we are up against. So in light of this, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that some of the technologies that are being introduced in the and the display network and the field of display advertising are so revolutionary. They are so transformative in nature that soon, and we are on the verge of a tipping point here. We think that the entire field of marketing, display advertising is going to change with some of the technologies that are being introduced now. And in the midst of all these blind spots and these kind of things, it's easy to lose sight of the fact that things are going to change very fast. And we, as marketeers, have to know what these changes are. What's happening in the field of display advertising, which is so transformative in nature, which is changing it completely changing its nature. So let me share with you before, and we think there are 4 broad areas in which this change is going to happen. But first, let me tell you, why do we think there's a tipping point? Why is the change so cataclysmic? It's because of this. Everyone, everywhere, is always connected. There are over 1.6 billion people in the world who are connected. More importantly is the fact that a smartphone that this lady's hand is holding over here, there were 174 million smartphones sold last year. And the number this year is even more than that. And as a result of this, everybody is connected all the time. Now, from a display advertising point of view, it makes some fundamental changes. Earlier, we used to talk about the right ad to the right person using internet advertising. Now, it's not just about the right ad to the right person, but right ad to the right person at the right time, at the right place, and also doing what he's doing at that particular point of time. So when a person is actually working, the ad that you might want him to see is different from when he's running or in the gym, or when he's attending a music concert, or when he's sitting in a pub with friends. And because of the smartphone, you know where he is now. So it's not just about the right ad to the right person, but it's the right ad, right person, the right time, the right place, and you need to know what he's doing, and you can do that. Those are the kind of technologies available to display marketeers now. So now let's see what are the 4 big changes that are happening in the world of display which can help you do this. Number 1, fragmentation. When display advertising started, when the internet advertising started, all of a sudden, there was so much choice because having a website is so easy. There were so many media options that it became a problem for marketeers. Unlike television or magazines, where you had limited choices, fragmentation became a challenge for marketeers. In fact, early on in internet advertising, marketeers were spending about 28% of the media dollars on transaction costs. Because they had to deal with so many different media publishers, 28% of the media dollars was being spent on actually carrying on those transactions. Now compare this to 2% of transaction cost in a medium like TV. So 28% was huge, but not anymore. Now you have ad networks coming in which take care of this, and I'm going to talk more in detail about that. So first, fragmentation is an opportunity. It's not a challenge anymore, and we'll show you how. Number 2, creativity at scale. Earlier, either you could be creative or you could send a message at scale. Now you can do both. There are technologies that allow you to do both at the same time, and we'll see how we can do that. That's second. Number 3, there's life beyond clicks and impressions. Yes, clicks and impressions are important, but now you can measure the impact of your advertising campaigns, your marketing campaigns in different ways. You can measure the impact they have on your brand. You can measure the impact they have on your store footfalls. You can measure the impact that they have on your partners' websites. So there's so many other things that you can do. And this science has evolved to such a degree that you as marketers decide what's the right metrics for you. And we're going to talk about some of these things. And fourth is something that we all know, social. Social is just a web. The web, actually web has caught up with life by being what we do in real time, which means being social all the time. And social advertising, social marketing is a whole new world of opportunity from a display perspective. So we talked about 4 things. We talked about creativity at scale, the fact that you can measure things, the fact that fragmentation is not a problem anymore, and social. So let's now elaborate on each one. Let's first talk about fragmentation. Now, earlier, there was a belief that if we get one perfect ad, if I get my creative right, that ad is going to be applicable to everyone. Everybody would like it. That used to be the belief earlier, but not anymore. Now, with advertising exchanges coming up, there are millions of ad options available to all marketeers at any point of time for each individual. So you decide what kind of ad do you want to show to a particular person at any point of time. And for each impression, you can decide how much money you want to pay for that impression, in which website you want to place that impression, who do you want to see that ad, and at what time, and what he's doing at that particular place. Just to give you an example, we have this ad exchange called DoubleClick Ad Exchange in the US. Now, on any given day, the unique ad slots available to an agency is more than the number of equities and bonds traded on all the world's stock markets all over the world. On any given day, the number of ad slots available to an advertiser in the US is more than the number of equities and bonds sold across all the exchanges all over the world. That's the kind of options available to us. Now, the number of options is limitless, but what does it do to you as a marketer? Now, let's take a real-world example. Let's take the case of Formula One. Let's imagine you are the person doing the marketing for the Formula One seats, and you are supposed to sell tickets online. Now, you could either target people who are interested in F1 racing. You could even target people who are interested in only premium seats versus inexpensive seats. So that's one way to target. But it doesn't end there. It goes much more than that. You could actually target people who are sitting in Sydney, who are interested in Formula One, and are actually looking for a hotel deal. So you could look at all the Formula One people who are interested in a hotel deal and give them an all-expense, complete package, including hotel, including tour guides, including everything. Or you could target a Formula One fan in Malaysia who wants an inexpensive seat over here. So the ad being shown to each one would be different. So you're not just talking about Formula One buyer or cheap seats versus expensive seats. You're looking at what that Formula One buyer is looking for besides Formula One and actually tailoring your ad accordingly. You could go down to that level of customization. You could do one more thing. You could, as you approach closer to the Formula One date, depending on the number of seats available, you could change the bid. You could decide whether you want to pay more for the ad or less for the ad, and depending on the bid level, the frequency of your ad will change. So if your seats you still have a lot of seats left, the ad frequency will be more. If you don't have enough seats left, the ad frequency will be less. And all this happens on a real-time bidding model. All this is automated. You don't have to go and keep optimizing your campaign again and again. There are millions of options available. You can make millions of changes all in a given day using some of these technologies available. So ad exchanges, multiple data sources, allowing you to do these things real time makes your ad very definite, very precise, with absolutely zero wastage. If I were a marketer, I would want to use all these parameters. I would want to use all these technologies, because what it's allowing me to do is create that perfect ad, which is for that one person, not just one ad for everyone. That ad for that one person, which works for him with zero cost, with zero spillage. That's what I would do as a marketer. So that's how precise it's become with all the available options to us. Second thing, we've talked about all these options. Now, what about creativity? Now, marketing has always been more than ROI, right? It's all about creative. Now, the general belief is that creativity is there in TV advertising, but not so much in display advertising. Actually, that's not true. Display advertising can be the most creative form of advertising available. But what's important is to marry this creativity with science, with technologies available. Now, look at something like a mobile phone again. Look at an Android phone. Now, today, an average person downloads about 40 Android apps on his phone. And he spends about 2 hours a day using these apps, 2 hours a day using this app. Now, using the free mobile apps available to you as an advertising platform, think about the kind of options you have to target this person. Let's look at some of these options. Now, Dockers ran a campaign called Shakeable. Anybody's heard of this campaign called Shakeable by Dockers? Very interesting campaign. What they did was this. They targeted tech-savvy male professionals sent ads to them through free mobile apps. What the ad did was this. Now, each of these mobile phones, the Android phones, have a motion-sensitive accelerometer, which detects the motion of the phone. They had an ad, which was called Shakeable, through which you could control the moves of a street dancer. So you could actually move your phone, and you control the moves of a street dancer. Now, an average person actually used that ad, was engaged, had the engagement level was 42 seconds per person. Great campaign, all on free mobile apps. Or something like this that a Nike could do, for instance. We have something called Google Goggles over here, which is an augmented reality app. Let's say you see a billboard of Nike. A person could use Google Goggles to look at the ad. Based on what he's seeing through Google Goggles, you could actually have a video Nike ad on his phone. But why stop there? You could do even more. You could actually show a Google map, and the video ad could direct him to a Google map, which shows a Nike store to him. You could go one step further. He could actually ask him to customize a shoe for himself, depending on what his preferences are, whether he wants a running shoe, tennis, whatever, and actually direct him, recommend a shoe to him, and actually point him to the Nike store. The options are limitless. Creativity, as we generally know it, has to be merged with the options available through technology. And display advertising can be the most creative form of advertising. So we've talked about available data sources, we've talked about creativity, but none of this would be of any use if you can't measure it. So what about measurement? So far, the holy trinity of measurement in online has been clicks, impression, conversions. But measuring all the marketing campaigns, as you as marketers would know, through only clicks, impression, and conversions is almost like trying to write a review of a movie by seeing just 5 minutes of a trailer. It's much more than that. You would want to know the brand impact of your advertising. You would want to know how is it impacting your store footfalls. There are so many other ways to measure a campaign. The great part is all those things are available to us. There are so many other ways to measure the impact of an advertising campaign beyond the clicks and impressions. Clicks, impression, conversions definitely are important. They have their own place. But there's life beyond that. So let's look at some of the examples that are available to us. Now, take the case of a travel operator. We worked with a travel operator where we saw 93% more web traffic to their site based on the display campaign. Now, we know all this, but the point is that now these travel operators can actually pinpoint the source of this traffic and also pinpoint which creative worked in the display campaign and keep changing those creatives regularly. So you know it's not just about clicks and impressions, but you can actually measure the impact on your website. Or look at another example. We worked with a retailer where they saw 120% more brand searches after the display campaign was ran. Another example, you don't have to confine it to your own website. You work in an ecosystem. Most of the companies work in an ecosystem. So think about a mobile phone manufacturer. What's important to them is not just the people who come to their website, but people who go to their carrier's website. So we worked with a mobile phone manufacturer, and they measured that after running a display campaign, the traffic on their carrier's website increased by 15%. And the number of searches for their own brand increased by 18%. So these are the kind of things you can measure. So depending on where you are, what do you want to do with your campaign, whether you want to measure the brand impact or you want to measure the store footfalls, there's so many other metrics available. And we encourage our advertisers to look at it in a holistic manner, beyond clicks and impressions. And not just that, even if you want to see what is the source of conversions on a campaign, we encourage that as well. So for instance, we looked at an advertiser who had 3,000 conversions. We could actually isolate the incremental conversions they got as a result of the display campaign, which means if this display campaign didn't run, out of the 3,000, 19% of the conversions would never have happened. Not only that, not everybody clicks on an ad, right? People just see the ad and move on, but that ad would have an impact on them. So we could also measure how many of these guys didn't actually click on your ad. They just saw the ad and then converted. Even those kind of things you can measure. Not just clicks, but people who see the ad, don't click on it, and yet convert. So those are the kind of metrics that are available to you. So we've talked about data sources available to you, creative, and then measurement. And last, not least, social. So how do you measure social? We all know, it will be, I don't need to highlight this. 56% of people on the web are on a social network, right? So obviously, there's something happening over here which is profound, which is really deep in its impact. The point is, how do we take advantage of that? How do we really harness it into our marketing programs? What social is doing is actually providing our customers a chance to converse about our brands, and it's not a one-to-many communication anymore. It's not just about us talking about a brand. It's about our customers talking to each other about our brands. Now, how do you use that in the display advertising context? So there are some very interesting technologies available now. Now, social does not have to be in the context of a social networking site as well. While that definitely is an important part of it, but it's not just about being in a social networking site. You could actually incorporate elements of social into your display campaign. So think about, imagine a display campaign where you have an ad over here, and somebody looks at that ad, and he shares that ad. Depending on whether he likes the ad or not, he clicks a button, and he says, I like the ad, and then the ad is shared with that person's friends, and his friends' friends, and so on and so forth. Now, imagine the impact of this. Today, there are 5 billion content pieces being shared across social networks all over the world. There are 50 million tweets a day that we do, right? We do 50 million tweets a day. Even if 0.1% of these was to be used for your brand message, it will have a profound impact, because these are people talking about your brand. Not us talking about a brand, but the people talking about a brand. So now there are technologies, and we are working on technologies which allow people to look at an ad, like the ad, and share the ad with their social graph. So the impact social can have on this is phenomenal. And social does not necessarily have to be restricted to social networking, but goes beyond that. It's all pervasive. It's all across the entire display network. And we are working on technologies that make it happen. So we've talked about 4 things. We think these 4 things are profound, important. They are really transformative, and they're changing the way we look at display advertising. It's about the right data sources. It's about having the right creatives, marrying the creatives with technology available. It's about measurement, and it's about social. And we think that the world of display advertising will be very different a couple of years from now. And we invite all of you to be a part of the journey with us. Thank you so much. With this, I'll hand over to my colleagues, and we're going to look at how some of these technologies can actually be operationalized using the tools available from Google. Thank you.